With me now is Alan Dershowitz, professor at Harvard Law School. Professor Dershowitz, I know you've been watching this debate here, and I'm trying to learn what I should have learned in law school, but I didn't go. So let me ask you about this. Why would an appellate court talk about policy like this, saying that none of these countries, these 7 countries, have sent us a terrorist yet? And I wonder why. In a courtroom, precedent may be everything, but it's certainly nothing to do with terrorism. They pop up from all kinds of places. Sirhan came from the West Bank or somewhere, from Jordan at the time. I mean, we don't know where they're going to come from. Muhammad Ali came from Egypt. We don't know where they're going to. You can't. How do you rule on the appropriateness of a ban or an executive order when you're saying you can predict the future if you're a judge and presidents can't?
Look, this is not a solid decision. This is a decision that looks like it's based more on policy than on constitutionality. There are many, many flaws. And if I were Trump's lawyer, I would say, look, here's your situation. You're going to lose the stay application to the Supreme Court. This stay is going to stay in effect now for many, many weeks and months. You may ultimately win in the Supreme Court, but you've said today that the national security of the United States depends on this order being implemented now. So you have only one option. You have to withdraw the order. You have to go back to the drawing board. You have to come up with a new order that will immediately be applicable and won't be able to get a stay from any judge. Otherwise, you won't be protecting the security of the United States. And the response is, well, Donald Trump never admits he's wrong. So here we have a conflict between Trump's ego on the one hand and what he claims is the national security of the United States. I don't think he has any option but to withdraw this order now and come up with an order that's constitutional.
Well, there's blood in the water now, Professor. There's blood in the water now, and people are going to say, yeah, we can use the Fifth Amendment right to due process against anything he throws at us, because I saw the breadth of that, or we're going to throw something at him because he's weak on this.
Well, I think this court opinion will not ultimately be sustained by the Supreme Court. Take, for example, the argument that it's an establishment of religion because it favors Christians or other religious minorities. In 1944, we passed the War Refugee Act, which specifically was designed to rescue 100,000 Jews. And everybody knew the purpose was to rescue Jews. That didn't establish Judaism as the state religion of the United States. I think the establishment argument will fail in the Supreme Court. I think the standing arguments may fail in the Supreme Court. So they have won a very, very solid preliminary victory. I think they'll win if they take an argument to the Supreme Court. By the way, if they're smart, they won't appeal this to the Supreme Court. They'll wait for a case from another circuit, which may come out the other way. And then if there's a 4-4 split in the Supreme Court, it goes in the favor of the Trump administration rather than against them, which a Ninth Circuit opinion is likely to do. But I don't think logic is prevailing in the White House or in the Justice Department these days. They're not getting good legal advice. They're not following subtle, sophisticated legal proceedings. They're just trying to win. And winning may end up losing in the end if, in fact, this is a risk to American national security. He needs to get a new order in place now.
Thank you so much, Alan Dershowitz, who says it's possible we'll see a reversal of fortune.
What exactly is the court saying here? I'm trying to understand what the central objection to the president's executive order is.
Look, I think this is a disgraceful conclusion because what they did is they substituted their judgment as to what constitutes a threat to American security for the president's. Now, we were all interested in what they think, but that is irrelevant to the case. The case was, does the president have the authority to do it? And if he does, it's his judgment to make. And that's the plain reading of the law. It's the plain understanding of the Constitution. I think the policy was unwise, but that's irrelevant.
Right.
I think it is very clearly legal. This is the most left-wing, most overturned court in the country. So I think for the administration, and considering that Trump does not like to lose, I think he may want to go to the Supreme Court, which may not be the most tactically wise way to go. But you know that he tweeted out, "See you in court." Well, I'm told that the governor of Washington State just tweeted out, "We did go to court and you lost." Now that is sure to get a rise out of the president. And I suspect out of a matter of pride, he's going to want to go to the Supreme Court, where I think his chances may be dicey. So there's just no slam dunk, even though I think if we had a full court, if we had Scalia or if we have the new justice, he would win, but we're not sure where it goes. Remember, as you know, Tucker, if the High Court splits 4-4, then the ruling of the Ninth Circuit, the one we got tonight, stands, and the president loses.
Now, I've heard some speculation about the case that the Justice Department lawyers, the career attorneys from DOJ, made before the appeals court. And I've heard a number of attorneys say it wasn't a very apt case. They didn't do a very good job, and they seemed a little light on detail. And at one point they were asked, well, name the threat. Be more specific about the threat that the U.S. may face from these 7 countries. And they didn't seem to have the facts with them. Do you think it's possible that they didn't make a very good case, and that they didn't make a good case because they don't believe in the case?
Well, on the first question, I was listening in to the oral arguments, and the Trump side, the federal government side, was, I thought, exceedingly weak. I don't think they were throwing the game. I don't think this is a guy who went in there deliberately to lose. I think this was a junior guy. I'm told the top 2 were unable to do it for whatever reason, had to recuse themselves. And remember, I think this is a mistake, a tactical error by the administration. You don't go into a decision like this, executive order like this, where you know you're going to get sued. You know you might get stayed, unprepared. They did it before having an attorney general in place, so they are dependent on the career people who are not necessarily the top of their class. I don't think this was a guy who was playing the 1919 White Sox, throwing the World Series. I think it just wasn't. He was a minor leaguer who was, had to bat in the World Series.
I'm joined right now by Margaret Carlson of the Daily Beast and Eli Stokols of Politico, and also Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post. We don't have much time, but I want to hear from all of you. My view is mixed now, because I think I like presidents to be strong, even this one. I think we're always worse off with a weaker president. I think the courts have gotten into somebody else's marmalade here. You start talking about policy and which countries to target and which ones not to target. These judges don't have any competence to do that. They may have a legal right to move that way, but we'll see. Margaret Carlson.
But a strong president has a roadmap of how to write a new executive order. I agree with the professor. I went to law school, and
I know you
still
did.
can't.
But why did you see this ruling? How wide it is? They basically said it has to do with a due process. It has to do with everybody who's a person. And they didn't even ask about people at some consulate. They say everybody involved in this is a person. Therefore, you can't do it.
This rule is as wide as the executive order was wide.
Okay.
And if it's narrowed and it's written more carefully, and there's some supporting documentation, tell us why the extreme vetting that some of these people
Trump can
go
win the
through.
Ninth Circuit with any piece of paper that goes by them?
Leave that out. I'm saying going forward, he doesn't want to stay. He wants to say, oh, now I have my team. I'm going to write a new order.
Well, he's got Jeff Sessions to help him now.
I mean, it was a unanimous decision on this San Francisco-based court that the Republicans are now attacking, that the White House is now attacking. The George W. Bush-appointed judge did not dissent on this. He was part of that opinion. And so I think that makes it harder to undercut. I mean, you can't be a strong president just
You're
with
with Hillary that says 3-0.
You can't be a strong president just with bluster. You have to be competent as well. You can't just undo your executive order because you get a memo from the White House.
What did you think of the court ruling that these weren't 7 countries that we should worry about, particularly because they haven't attacked us yet?
Well, I don't know why the court is.
Why would they do
that?
But I think the judges got into the policy area. Your thoughts?
First of all, this is a case of extraordinarily bad lawyering by the United States. I could not agree more that rather than look at the judges, you should look at the Justice Department. They made mistake after mistake. They included green card holders, never should have done that. When they modified it, the president didn't modify it. The White House counsel wrote some little memo, which the court broke down. When they had the opportunity to present evidence of irreparable harm, and that's where those 7 countries come in, by the way, we can talk about that in a minute, they didn't do it. This is atrocious lawyering, and either that was done because they were not in the loop with the White House, because it was rushed, or for whatever other reason. But I think redrafting it would not only give them an opportunity to narrow the order, but give them an opportunity to get better lawyering here. Now, the reason they went into those 7 countries was not just because of an abstract policy issue. That was because they had to make an analysis of irreparable harm. What the government didn't do is show that they would be irreparably harmed. The court practically pleaded with them, give us something, tell us something. And all they had were these 7 countries that they knew had not had terrorist attack, but they pleaded with the government, give us more. They didn't. That was another screw-up.
Well, if this were September 1st, 2011, they could have said Egypt and Saudi Arabia, they haven't attacked us yet. Therefore, what right have you got to ban people from coming there? And had they banned them from coming there at that time, it might have been critical. So I just don't think judges can predict the future.
Maybe they should have put Saudi Arabia on this list.
Well, they weren't. Well, there's a judge.
Now, there's
a judge can say that, and
yeah.
you can say that, and I can say, but the president gets to say it. That's the question, because he has to protect, or she, if we have one, has to protect the country.
Right, but they're not really talking about
I don't like weak
executive power.
presidents. I don't think anybody gains from a weak president, but we'll see.